All right, so we finally made it back from South Africa. Just gonna get right into it. Excuse my hair. I had my hair in a ponytail the last couple weeks, and whenever I take it down, this is kind of what it looks like. Which I think I touched on that about my hair and like what that was gonna like trying to figure out what that was gonna look like, and it turned out fine. Like this style, absolutely the way I'm gonna be going forward. My hair doesn't really do too well with like braids and cornrows and stuff like that, just because I deal with dandruff sometimes and like my scalp is sensitive. So this was perfect. It let my scalp breathe. I was able to wash my hair on a regular schedule every week. So yeah, it's been cool. I'm gonna keep it like this probably for another week. It looks completely still fine. So anyway, I mentioned that because I mentioned that in my last video, I think. But yes, I wanted to come on here and kind of talk a little bit about what my experiences were in South Africa. I definitely think I'm going to make a few different videos about this just over the coming months. I was going to make it like kind of a 2-part, 3-part series kind of thing, but no, like, I don't know. I feel like at this point, it's just one of those things where I can take, different things that I've learned, different topics. There were so many, just make a video about them whenever. I'm not going to be too focused on like trying to make it some like consecutive thing or whatever. So yeah, so to start out, if you're new here, hey, I'm Breon. I made this channel earlier this year. It's what, July now. It's crazy to think how time is flying, but I made this channel earlier this year and have really just been talking about a plethora of things. You'll see throughout the channel that I touch on different topics. Gender expression and gender identity and things like that is something that I care about a lot, that I will talk about a lot, but I also have other things that I care about a lot as well, like fitness and travel. Obviously, that's what this is about. Relationships, friendships, my relationship, and just, romantic relationships, and just kind of everything. Anything that I guess affects the everyday person. That's typically what I like to talk about. So this one in particular, though, I was going to go a little bit into like just before the trip. I did touch on this in my last video, but now that I'm looking at everything in hindsight, I kind of wanted to generally talk through like, why I even went on this trip, how this came about. It basically is a requirement for my master's in theological studies degree. So I had to take this trip in order to graduate. It was a study abroad kind of thing, or a study abroad class that we had to, do journal entries. We had to debrief every single day. Like it was very, very, very intense when it came to the academic side of things. Like we got to listen to a lot of speakers, a lot of good speakers that we listened to, and just took in a lot of information. And as I started out the trip, it was obviously just that. Like I was doing this because it's a requirement. I'm showing up to do it. I'm obviously excited to go to South Africa. Like that's exciting. But it was not until we had to do like a back-to-back orientation before we flew out, the weekend before we left on a Monday. So we had to basically do like a back-to-back orientation, getting to know the people in the group, talking about what to expect, just kind of going in with an understanding of like what the purpose of this trip is and what isn't the purpose either. And as I was in that orientation, I really started to kind of think about the fact that there are other things that I'm going into this trip thinking about outside of it being a requirement. And of course, I've mentioned this in my last couple videos about this trip. Just going in from a standpoint of gender and just like not knowing what to expect. My experience within the Black community generally, but when it comes to Black communities generally, my experience isn't necessarily the greatest when it comes to how I'm received and how I am interacted with and how I'm treated, or how I am, how people act around me. And that was something that I don't want to say I was like panicked about, but more so definitely concerned and more like, okay, I don't know what to expect. And that was something I just wasn't really sure how that was going to go. And it was one of those things that I had to just kind of chalk it up to like, okay, I guess we'll see. And I kind of just let that be what it was and kind of went with the flow of like, you can't know anything until you get there. You can't make assumptions. You can have fears and have things that you are hesitant about, but at the end of the day, you won't know until you get there. And that was the stance I took. So there was that aspect of it. And then it kind of hit me as I was preparing to leave and everything, that is also my first like solo trip doing something internationally. Of course, I was with a group of people, but I mean, I'm used to traveling internationally with my partner, or other travel being with like family or friends. So this was like a really big opportunity for me to like see how I am and who I am when I travel by myself, and what that looks like, to maneuver through the world on my own with people that I don't know that well, and just kind of like, it just being me essentially. And that was something that it kind of, hit me before we left, and not in a, I wasn't anxious about it. It was more like, oh, like I didn't even really think about that. And it's kind of hit me now that I'm officially leaving. And I also wanted to just being excited about like going to go visit another culture and being able to experience another culture through the lens of real life, and what the community and the people who actually live there have to say about living there, instead of, obviously reading it, and you see videos and you learn about things on social media or in school and things like that. So there was that aspect of it as well, is that I was just excited about being able to see things through my own lens, through the people who actually live there. And that was something that, again, didn't really hit me until I was about to leave, because there was, I was just busy leading up to the trip. And then it's like, kind of when you hit that, wow, we about to literally get on this flight and be in a whole different country. And in the next day, it can be, anybody who's traveled just anywhere, but specifically internationally, knows that feeling can be kind of like, it hits you, kind of can hit you when you're sitting in the plane, on the plane or whatever. So, the other aspect of this that I thought about was just being in a group. So that orientation that we had was us getting to know one another a little bit, and having an understanding of who we were going to be traveling with. I didn't really know what to feel about this, because I'm also in a space where the people that I'm around are religious in some way, shape, or form, whether that's Christianity or some branch of Christianity, and I am not religious at all. So there was a kind of, thought of, what is this going to look like being in a group of people as someone who is non-religious, and who is purely going on this trip and is a part of this, my degree from a academic standpoint. Like, I don't align with any religious belief. I don't care to. That's not for me. But at the same time, I truly, truly, truly enjoy history. I enjoy religion as a topic, and understanding how it impacts us socially, and just, humans, the human race in history, up to date and in the future, all that stuff. Like, that's something that I really enjoy. So that was another thing I thought about going into the trip, is like, okay, what is it going to be like being in a group of people, especially because we're going to be talking about very dense things as it relates to religion and race and gender and sexuality. And I'm not a person that I'm not somebody that doesn't understand how to maneuver in rooms like that, because being around people who believe differently to me doesn't intimidate me or scare me or make me feel like that, we can't have normal conversations. Like, that's something that that people in my group picked up on very quickly as we were traveling. Like, hey, like, I like talking to people. I like hearing about what people have to say. I like, even if that's about your denomination or what you do within your church or what you do within whatever religious space you're in, I enjoy hearing those things, because that's a part of what I just said, how religion and all of that impacts people socially every day, right? And I can talk to somebody, truly engage with them, and feel no sort of like I have to agree with that, or like I have to make sure that I don't. Like, no, I'm listening to you tell me about yourself. And if I'm gonna genuinely try to be a person that wants to be inviting to people, that can't be, how do I say it? That can't be like, I can't pick and choose when to do that. You know what I mean? And I've always been that way, which is why them being Christian wasn't something that I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have to be around a bunch of Christian people, or no, like not at all. It was more so the thought of, how are they going to respond, or how is it going to be when I speak up about what my beliefs are, or what they're not, because we're going to be in dialogue. Right. So, yeah, there was definitely, I guess maybe this could be the video about just like first impressions in regards to like the group and getting there and having conversations with people and being able to see, I don't want to say quickly, but at some point throughout the trip, being able to see that, like, at the end of the day, like, this was a group full of a very diverse group of people. There were older people, there were white people, there were black people, there were queer people, well, pretty much me, and it was one other person that ended up sharing that they were queer. And, there was a lot of different dynamics going on, that at some point in the trip, there was, how do I say it? There were definitely things that came up that needed to be addressed in a, in a academic controlled way in our debriefings, that, it just was bound to happen, because you have this group of 18 people of very different types of people that, you start, after you see all these things in South Africa, witness all these things, you hear all these talks and conversations that, people's personalities start to come out in a way that may not sit right with you, and vice versa. And there's dialogue that comes with that. And we were told early on that, like, hey, there's going to get to a point where somebody's going to get on your nerves, and something's going to happen at some point. Not to be negative, but you're in a group with a lot of people, it's bound to happen, because you're traveling together, you're figuring out a lot of things on the go. You are learning about people on the spot as you're traveling, which is a whole different, that's a whole different kind of way to get to know somebody, is being able to see them and how they react to things, under stress, under moments of misunderstanding, or not knowing what's going on. And that in itself, before we even got to South Africa, was definitely something, for sure. It was definitely something. But I think, just maneuvering through travel with a big group of people taught me something about myself, and just realizing that, I'm absolutely an expressive person. I love talking to people. I love dialogue and stuff like that. But I quickly realized that I am absolutely somebody that needs to kind of stay to themselves and observe before I kind of jump right in. I can have those conversations and not be standoffish, but I quickly realized that, me being somebody that works remotely and doesn't get a whole lot of human interaction outside of me making it a point to go do it, I quickly realized, oh, wow, I need to figure out a way to get away from the group without coming off get away from me. And I struggled with that throughout the entire trip, if I'm being honest. And it wasn't about any one person in particular. It was nothing about anybody in particular, but just the group itself, being immersed in a new country that I'm not familiar with, not having my partner there, not having, my soundboard and the person that I talk through everyday life with, especially as we're traveling and things like that. There was a lot of overwhelming feelings that came with just being in such a large group and having to be on the go with them every single day. And I'm sure everybody can attest that was in the group felt similarly at some point. So I did struggle with that. And I think as we started to have our debriefs and sit and kind of talk through what to expect, one of our first check-in, or our, what do you call them? Not debrief, but our check-in orientation when we got to Johannesburg was a really good conversation around the history of Johannesburg, history of South Africa, us kind of introducing ourselves and kind of starting the dialogue amongst one another, which I really found helpful for me, just to kind of understand the different personalities within the group. And those debriefings really helped me to kind of find my place, because at first, as I already said, being somebody that is non-religious, somebody who is non-binary, all that, I was I don't know where I'm about to fit in here. Not that I have to fit in, but of course, I'm about to be traveling with these people internationally. I want to see where I feel the most comfortable in terms of who I want to talk to, who I maybe, I don't want to say don't want to talk to, but who I may not really click as well with, or whatever. I feel like that's fair for anybody to say. You're not going to click with everybody. So those debriefings really, really helped me to just kind of take a step back and observe, and be able to see the kinds of interactions that would likely keep happening, and when I wanted to pull back, when I wanted to engage, and making sure that I'm balancing both of those things, so I don't come off I don't like somebody, or I'm trying to just say get away from me, while also respecting the fact that I'm not somebody that's going to sit there and perform for anybody just because we're in the same room or because we're traveling together. There can be a balance to it. So with all that being said, I think my general travel to South Africa was smooth. I didn't really have any anxiety about the travel itself. This was the longest flight I've ever been on. It was 14 hours, I believe. The first going there was 13. We had a small flight going to New Jersey, and then New Jersey to Johannesburg was 13 and a half hours. And then coming back we left from Cape Town, going back to Newark, that was about 14 hours. And then Newark to Columbus was quick. And yeah, I would say that I didn't really struggle with that part of it. I think that, going into a flight, knowing that you have the night to kind of try to sleep or whatever, it went by rather quick to me. So I didn't really have any issue with that. And now that I've, check that off of my list of having traveled a long way like that, I can go anywhere now. I'm definitely cool with that. I was a little bit concerned going into customs, more so because, the people at customs were African men. And I'm just being quite frankly honest. My experience with African men in the States have not been the best when it comes to anything, to be quite honest. And just, the interactions that I have, the stares, the kind of interactions that me and my partner get have not been great. So me going into Johannesburg, there was that aspect of like, okay, there's going to be African men here. There were African men there at customs. And I feel like there was a part of me that like kind of shut that off when I got to the point of like, okay, we just in customs. Like I can see that it's a very routine kind of thing. I don't even know if somebody was staring or not at that point. I kind of quickly realized, which I do at home sometimes as well. I quickly realized like, okay, I can either hyper focus on this and probably will see some because it typically does happen, or I just do my routine thing, go through, do what I got to do and move on my life and take whatever, it kind of like, it is what it is kind of thing. And I think that me being more cautious about not being hyper focused and overly alert about things, and challenging myself to do that in a new place, especially just like I do at home and what I try to do at home when I'm out and about, really was helpful for me to kind of like get out of my head, essentially. So the customs part, that kind of like quickly came and went like, okay, we just here, we going through customs. Like at this point, I'm tired. Like we got to Johannesburg and I think it was like 6 p.m. And we have been traveling all day. So it kind of hits a point too where you're like, okay, like I'm here. This is just what it is. Let me be in the moment, even while traveling. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I guess this video is more so about the arrival part and just kind of settling into the trip itself. And I think that, I won't touch too much on a whole lot of the history here because that's just a whole other set of topics and videos that it wouldn't even do justice if I sat here and tried to like go through that at this moment. But I will say that like Johannesburg for me was the most authentic part of the trip. And it was set up first by design, just because I'll give kind of a quick highlight of just like our tour guide, our historian. We had a historian on our trip with us, Molefe. I have to remember his last name and come back and say that later, just to, give him a shout out because he was amazing. Molefi is his name. He was great, Molefe. And he did a really good job of making sure that we knew that you need to see Johannesburg first and understand the nuances and what has been, the long lasting effects of apartheid here first before going to Cape Town. And when I say like, I am so happy that we did that. And I think it was very necessary to understand the foundation of Johannesburg and their relation to Cape Town, South Africa, generally, what those people went through and what generations are going through now. And yeah, so I'm going to stop here. In my next video, maybe I'll do like a video about Johannesburg as a whole, my experience there, and then I'll do another one about Cape Town. That way it can be a little more spread out and I'm not trying to cover 80 million topics because it was quite a bit of things that we talked about and it was a lot. So, but yeah, these were kind of my first impressions of South Africa. This is what I was thinking about as I went into the trip and as the trip was starting out and going along and being with the group of people and all of that. And yeah, I want to come back, talk about Johannesburg, go more into depth about that, and kind of take you through my experiences as an American, as a Black African American, and also as a non-binary masculine presenting person. I would say those three things is what stood out the most as like kind of the three different lenses that I was looking through, essentially. And there's definitely lots to talk about there. So anyway, we're almost about to be at 19 minutes. So as always, feel free to add on to this if you've had any experiences in other countries or any country that for that matter, that you would like to share what your first impressions were or how you kind of managed to prepare for an international trip that, you didn't really know what to expect. And as always, comment, give your thoughts, like, share, subscribe, whatever you feel like doing. And I will be back with another video talking about Johannesburg, and we will follow along from there. So, all right, I will see you in the next video. Yeah, I'm just currently catching up on my rest because I am tired for sure. Definitely exhausted. It was a long trip, but it was a good one. So, all right, I'm rambling. See you next time.